Hi there, we have arrived at yet another SMG. This is probably the most popular weapon in Battlefield 2042 and I know some call it a noob weapon. I wouldn't call anything that, I mean, it's in the game, deal with it. But it's definitely a try-hard weapon. There are currently some pretty OP weapons like the shotgun with correct setup, but other than that, this is still the weapon to go when in close quarters. And if that shotgun dude misses the first shot, the K30 wins that one-on-one every day of the week. Before we get into the gritty details, I'll just do the classic YouTube advertising. Hit that awesome thumbs up button if you like this clip or a thumbs down if you don't. Either way, I appreciate your honesty. While at it, make sure to subscribe to get more videos like this in the future. Right, almost forgot. I've divided the video into different sections, which you can see in the timeline below. Skip to whatever part you want or swallow it whole. Your choice. First of all, I go through the K30 in real life, the history of the weapon and how it works. Then I return to the virtual world and how it fares in Battlefield 2042. What similarities are there, what differences, and why is it so freaking popular? Why is it hated? Somewhere around that point it becomes inevitable to go through the setup and how you get the most out of the K30. After all that, I finish it all off with my verdict of how good the K30 is, and if not before, this should clarify if this is the weapon for you. I know a lot of you really knows your stuff, so I'm not going to leave you hanging. The K30 is another of those really cool weapons that DICE brought from the real world, reshaped a bit and made their own future version. So the very short answer is no, there is no K30 in real life. Unless you are referring to the K30 Bio, which literally means flying tiger and is a twin 30mm self-propelled anti-aircraft weapon system. But fret not, it is, like all other weapons in Battlefield 2042, based on real weapons. The K30 SMG that we know from Battlefield 2042 is pretty much a direct copy of the Chris Vector. The second generation prototype is called K10, so even the name of K30 makes sense. In real life, the Vector is a rather unique piece with a very distinct design, as the idea is to transmit the energy downward instead of rearward as normal weapons do. This results in a reduced felt recoil and also reduced muzzle climb, which allows for an insane rate of fire. The initial prototype fired 1500 rounds per minute, though the production models only fire around 1200 rounds per minute. Civilian models are only semi-automatic, however, but I mean, who cares? Battlefield 2042 is not for civilians. While the Vector isn't exactly a hybrid system, it's still compatible with a bunch of different small calibers, depending on version. But with such small caliber, the effective range is of course limited, which of course makes sense for the rate of fire. Depending on version, the effective range is limited to around 50 to 60 meters something. Despite the cool design and all, the users of the Vector SMG are limited. According to Wikipedia, the only users are military and law enforcement in Bangladesh and Thailand. In Battlefield 2042, the K30 was absolutely awesome in the beta. Once the game came out, however, it was served with a very small mag of around 20 bullets. And you need to spend some time with it to unlock mags with larger capacity. 20-ish bullets at around 1200 RPM, as in Battlefield 2042, doesn't last very long. So you can't spray the entire room, and many players find it hard to kill multiple enemies simply because they run out of bullets. There has been a lot of improvement to Battlefield 2042 as a game, which actually makes it easier to get going with the K30 as well. Stuff such as hit registration makes it way easier to make those 20 bullets kill at least 2 enemies. And since you are almost guaranteed to do that every life, or many times if you are above average when it comes to tactical movement, you will find it quite easy to unlock larger mags. Actually, fairly similar to the real weapon, the K30 has an effective range around 50 to 60 meters in Battlefield 2042, damage drops off already at 10 meters and at 40 meters you do almost half the damage. But even so, the very high rate of fire allows it to be effective for a few meters more until the recoil becomes too apparent. I mean, the recoil is fairly limited, so with some decent techniques you can manage this fairly well, but since you need 8 bullets to hit your target at 40 meters, decent recoil won't cut it for longer distances. If at 100 meters or more, you should really start thinking about flanking without attracting too much attention instead of killing flies all over the map. very quick damage drop-off in combination with not that high damage per bullet from start is the main reason for me not naming this the best SMG. Sure, traditionally an SMG should be effective at close range, and to some degree that reasoning still apply. But the range of the SMGs has increased, especially in games such as Battlefield 2042. There are other SMGs that are way more versatile with longer range and marginally less damage output in close combat. I'll get back to this in the final section. First, let's have a look at the setup. Like some other weapons, the K30 is a pretty easy weapon, meaning that you can set it up in a number of ways without getting it completely wrong. My setup is meant to make the most out of it, by both being dominant at close combat, but also trying to extend that range just a bit. After all, the maps in Battlefield 2042 makes it hard to only fight within 20 meters. Starting with the muzzle, I used the tactical compensator. This is generally what you want to use for automatic weapons in Battlefield 2042, and that goes for the K30 as well. Improved weapon accuracy with just a tiny loss for recoil control. Nothing to worry about really, barely noticeable. As an option, I have the champion muzzle brake mainly for testing and comparing the result, and finally I have the PB heavy suppressor. I've said it before, even though the heavy suppressor takes away most of your sound and makes you invisible on the minimap, I mean together with the subsonics it can even guarantee hit indicator stealth. Even with all that, it's simply not worth it. There are so many different ways to spot a player in Battlefield 2042 that you should always just assume that everyone knows where you are anyway. When thinking about subsonics, it doesn't really matter either. Assuming that you're about 20 meters from your target, he or she must be absolutely blind not to see you. With decent FOV, you would be either in front or behind, so if hit and there's no one in front, then obviously you are behind. Not that it would matter, because if you do things right, the player doesn't have time to turn. Looking at the sights, I always use the Fusion Holo. All targets should normally be kept within 100 meters, and for that distance you don't really need any zoom. So target visibility and speed for ads are the most important aspects here. I tried the Maul Hybrid as an option, but more zoom makes the recoil more apparent, which I don't really want. Final option is the Iron Sight, which just as well could be empty spot because I never use it. Possibly the most important aspect of the K30 is the ammo, and for this I have two options that I actually use from time to time. My default is the standard issue extended mag, and my second option is the standard issue drum mag. As the drum mag is larger, I guess this creates questions for some of you. Why not always use the drum mag? The drum mag reloads a bit slower than the extended mag, and there are only marginally more bullets. In normal encounters, I can control the flow, so I kill my targets, or at least those in close proximity, but I quickly pause for reload before continuing. Because of the short reload time, this usually works out very well, resulting in a fresh mag for every new encounter. But that doesn't always cut it. If I know I'm up against an entire squad or multiple squads, I can prepare in advance and change to the drum mag. This makes sense, especially if you know the layout of the area and know that I won't be able to take those pauses in a fairly safe manner. I mean, it's of course hard to predict, as most positions in 2042 are exposed from multiple directions, but it can be better or worse, and I might know if there are people compromising the position. So more bullets in the mag if I expect I can't reload at all, less bullets in the mag but shorter reload time for normal cases where there usually is possibilities for short breaks. Final option is the subsonic, which I'm not a big fan. I mean, the mag size is smaller and there is also the penalty of projectile velocity. So for the final part of the plus system, the grip. I use the BCG light grip to improve ads accuracy, and the main reason is of course still that the weapon is good enough with hipfire. And I'm trying to level the weaknesses that appear at range. By using the BCG, I get a very consistent experience, which usually is beneficial. I've tried the laser as an option, but don't think the buffed hipfire is good enough to motivate the loss of range. Final option is the flashlight, which I don't recommend at all. I mean, just aim for light and you're home, so the so-called blinding effect is probably the most useless effect in the game. It might actually have a reversed effect even. I did mention before that I didn't think that this was the best SMG in Battlefield 2042, so let me elaborate a little bit. In close combat, especially up to around 15 meters, the K30 is a beast. It fires 20 bullets within a second, and if 3 of those hits the head, the target is dead. If you are a body shot bandit, you still only need to hit with 5. At that range, anyone should be able to handle recoil, and it doesn't really matter if you use ads or hipfire. Even if you set up the K30 for ads and absolutely trash the hipfire, it's still controlled enough to be an absolute menace. If you compare with the MP9 for a moment, it only manages to fire 15 shots the first second, and if you are within 4 meters, you actually only need to land 4 of those bullets for a body shot kill. But at 5 to 9 meters, it does the exact same damage per bullet as the K30. Naturally, since the K30 has a higher rate of fire, it is the more lethal option. It confirms what I said before, a close combat the K30 is a beast. However, between 10 and 49 meters, the MP9 does more damage per bullet than the K30, and somewhere in between it also becomes much easier to handle because of the lesser rate of fire. If you want to find out more about the MP9, you can look at my video about it. I still believe it's the best SMG in Battlefield 2042. Feels a little bit controversial, but let's face the fact, with the Battlefield 2042 maps, how often can you be within 50 meters of your enemy? How often are they 70 meters away, or even more? That is very much down to your tactical movement, but in the end, the maps of Battlefield 2042 favors weapons with a little bit more distance. With that pointed out, it's time to bring this video to a halt. Cheers!